Hey folks, I'm Jack Fossett, and welcome to this demo and review of the Wampler Tumnus Deluxe Overdrive. This pedal's been out for a while and there have been loads of reviews of it, so rather than going over it comprehensively, what I wanted to share with you in this review is kind of how I like to use it as a tone sculpting pedal as opposed to just as a standard overdrive pedal. And I was thinking about kind of some different ways to dial it in, and in doing so I went to Wampler's website and downloaded the manual just to see what are their thoughts on it and everything. And I actually discovered something that I love, which is presets. I love presets. The names of them, the different knobs, whether they're good or not on anything. I don't know if any of you remember the old Fender Supersonics used to come with like a preset card on top. And, you know, it would have Texas Blues and Lo-Fi Fuzz and one that was called Plays Itself, which I still don't fully understand. Is that like a player piano where something just comes out of the amp? I digress. There were several cool presets on the manual, and I thought that they were a good representation, actually, having played around with it, of some of the different sounds that this pedal can produce. So I'm actually focusing this review on the presets that are in the Wampler manual. Now, it's based on the Wampler Tumnus, which is the smaller one. The Tumnus Deluxe, of course, has your basic level and gain. You've got a normal and hot switch. You have a 3-band EQ, and you have a buffer switch. And everything has great functionality. Again, I think that what this pedal does exceptionally well is kind of like, you've heard the term probably foundation overdrive, and I think this works really well as a foundation overdrive. It's kind of like an always-on pedal. It's something that sculpts your tone that you base everything else off of. Now, that's not to say that it can't work as just a great overdrive or even distortion on its own as well, like you just heard in the second tone, high gain and juicy, which is... I hope that the person who came up with the name High Gain and Juicy got a raise, because that sells pedals. Anyway, if you'll notice, it has quite a dynamic range on the gain, and I tend to like it with a little bit lower gain, and not even necessarily going into something that's already driving. So like you heard in the intro, I was playing this guitar, the Gibson ES335. I was playing into the Franklyn Amps 5E3. Playing clean initially, and when you kick this on with the gain kind of back here on what was called the classic K tone, it really didn't add almost any drive. There was a bit of drive if I kind of dug in a little. But this is on a humbucking guitar, and the amp was not at the point of breakup, but it also wasn't just quiet either. It was, it's a 15-watt amp, and it was up reasonably loud. So that kind of tells you, again, the dynamic range of this pedal and its tone sculpting ability. Now, then afterwards, the reason that I added in the Wampler Pantheon, not only because I think these two pedals sound good together, but to show you that even with a little bit of grit added that it's going into, it still retains a sweetness and doesn't just sound like Saturated City. It still kind of has some nice character. Now, the 3-band EQ really is very, very sculpting, I've found. And I have found that, the buffer actually makes a big difference also depending on how you are using the EQ. For instance, I found that the mids kind of didn't like being all the way up, but you had more range on the mids, at least in my setup with the buffer turned on. The hot and normal switch, again, big, big difference. I particularly like it on normal, but I also tend to like smoother sounding drive. And on hot, it definitely gets more gain. I thought it sounded smoother on normal, and so I tend to like to keep it on normal. So you've just heard it with a few Gibson guitars. I played the SG for high gain and juicy because that just seems appropriate. What I also love about this pedal is how it works with different amps, and this is one of my very favorite overdrives to use into a Fender black or silver face type amp, which that type of amp can be surprisingly finicky when it comes to taking overdrives. They sound so beautiful clean, but they can actually get kind of grainy and have some harsh overtones with a lot of overdrives. Even classic overdrives that you think would be perfect for that style amp, they can be surprisingly finicky. This pedal just works with those types of amps, and works particularly well with single coils. And I like that this pedal really works with kind of bringing out the best of a guitar and an amplifier. It does have its own sound to a certain degree, but I think it also really emphasizes and kind of enhances your guitar and your amp's tone and works with them very, very well. Of course, the whole point to this type of pedal is that it's transparent, which I always thought was kind of silly because I think that K-style pedals do have their own tone in a way, but I think that it does work really, really well. Last thing that I love about this is I'm a huge, huge nerd, and I love Narnia. And so I love that in kind of a sea of clones that are out there, clones with a K, I love that they went with Tumnus, which has, not only the literary reference, but almost in a slightly tongue-of-cheek way, because, of course, all the other pedals out there seem to be some kind of slightly over-the-top mythical warrior. And Mr. Tumnus in Narnia is just is charming and peaceful and slightly silly in a way. Of course, he gets scared of Lucy and everything. And I think it's really cool that they went with the Tumnus idea. I think that's sort of a way that was done very, very well in a nice contrast to other pedals that are out there. Despite my Mythical Warrior comment, I still have been looking for someone who will make me a Klon clone called the Numenorian. I haven't found that person yet. So stick around for the next part. We're going to play some single coil guitars into a Fender Super Reverb. You just heard the first part is playing into the Franklyn Amps 5E3. Now I'm going to switch over to the Super Reverb. Let us know what you think of the Tumnus Deluxe. I think this is a great clone, but again, it's not just a clone. It's really, in many ways, its own thing. It's a great pedal. I absolutely love having it. I love its tone sculpting ability with a 3-band EQ. Do you have one, or do you have the regular Tumnus or another clone? What are your experiences? Let us know in the comments. Stick around for some more tones. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe. And I hope you enjoy the rest of the video.